I'm just sitting here. I got time.
Okay, let's get this over with. So if I'm being interviewed, then who's interviewing me?
The world seems small.
No.
Hello.
It's so beautiful. You and me.
Yeah.
Man bun Maury. First, this is unsettling for a plethora of reasons, not the least of which is who gave you this Zoom password and how did you get into my actual house?
Well, the answer to the second is contingent upon the first, but I'll tell you what you want to know if you can tell me who this is. So from what I've been hearing, you've been kind of trying to avoid doing your own interview, though asking everybody else to share their lives. Is that right?
Yeah. That's because I thought it would be awkward.
Ah.
So, good thing we avoided that.
So, what do you feel would have been awkward about doing an interview like this?
You know, there's something weird about being intimate and letting people in on the personal details of your life.
So you are an employee at New Hope, right? So, like, what do you actually do there?
Well, that's a good question. So I began in 2010 as the full-time youth minister. I had interned for 2 separate churches in prior years. First a year at Memorial Road Church of Christ, followed by a year at Oakcrest Church of Christ, and then hired on in 2010 as the full-time youth minister, a job I did, depending on who you ask. My final event in the capacity of connection to the youth group was the mystery trip in 2015. So somewhere in the range of 5 years of connection to that ministry before shifting into a variety of different things.
So what brought about those shifts?
Okay. We'll save it for a different episode. Fair enough. So in 2014, I began working regularly with our Cross and Crown team down at the Mission in Oklahoma City. I'd be down there 2 or 3 days a week, in the mornings at least, and also connected to some of our small group ministries and adult ministries, and teaching classes on Sundays and Wednesdays over the next couple of years. That was sort of my new role as was needed. And in May of 2016, I became the director of our campus and university ministry, our college ministry team, working alongside Joe Smith and Tim Wills and their family.
Hey, Blue. You want some treats? Can you get on your couch? Good boy. Can you catch it? Catch it. Good boy. Good boy. Alright. Can you give me 5? Can you give me the other 5? Oh, good boy. Catch it. There you go. Alright. Can you lay down? See some patience, okay? See some patience. Stay. You're a smart boy. You know I love you, right? You can go get it. Good boy. Give me 5. Yeah!
From a distance you can tell
Now you are not married, but you have siblings who have kids, and they live around these parts, right? Tell me just a little bit about each one of them. There's 4 now, right? They're kind of across the board in ages. What's that looking like?
If you haven't noticed, the hosts of this show, being a proud uncle is something that it's a hat that I wear first and foremost in terms of jobs I enjoy. So my sister has 2 kids. They are just now 10 years old as the oldest one, which, man, Wyatt, being 10, that's unbelievable. Crazy how fast a decade goes.
Say, hi, New Hope.
Hi, New Hope.
Say, Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Now blow 'em kisses. Oh, you're so sweet.
He's 10. And Wyatt's a soccer player, and he's turned into a great little soccer player. He's got a knack for scoring, which is fun to watch. I love going out on Saturdays and catching his games. And over the last several years, just seeing the progression and how all that's come together, it's been awesome. But beyond that, he's just a sweet kid and such a kind and caring individual. So he loves sports, he loves superheroes. He is really big into video games. He's great at Breath of the Wild, I think, on his Nintendo Wii. Or not Nintendo Wii, on his Switch. And so he's a well-rounded kid. Then his sister, Emery, is just a sweetheart. She reminds me a lot in the way she cares about people of an Abby Lawrence personality. Everybody is her concern all the time, and she wants to take care of anybody she can at any point, and it's a spirit that is really endearing. And not to mention, she's gifted and talented and a great dancer and a ballerina, and loves her princesses. Man, she has so many princess dresses. She's my only niece. I have 3 nephews, but she's the only niece. Couldn't be more thankful for those 2. My brother has 2 kids. You may have seen them wandering the premises at some point. They seem to think this show is theirs. And it turns out from all the feedback that I get, it pretty much is. They are just nonstop energy at the ages of gonna be 5 in just a couple of days, and the other one is gonna be 3 here in a couple of months. They are in full speed crazy kid mode. They are NBA junkies. Those kids love the National Basketball Association, and they devour games and all-star weekends and dunk contests and anything. Unreal how much time they spend consuming professional basketball before they've turned 5, and they are knowledgeable. So Baylor is just about 5, and also a soccer player, like his older nephew Wyatt, and like his dad, and it's been similar, the same type of enjoyment watching him progress, and from the first season to the second to the third, gotten to be really good, and he's aggressive, and he moves like nobody else on the field. And I say that, I mean, his body just seems to be like in these non-stop even legs kicking around. He has a tendency to go out and if you're familiar with Pat Connaughton from the Milwaukee Bucks, which I don't know why you wouldn't, the celebration or pre-game routine that Pat Connaughton does before his dunk contest is something that Baylor will regularly do during just the middle of a soccer game. So there are elements that are just incredibly fun and goofy, and 5, and his little brother is about to be 3 at the end of November. And so Beckett is also a huge basketball fan. But they also really love Toy Story. Like, I do not know 2 bigger Toy Story fans in the world. And so they've got all kinds of memorabilia and pictures and posters and toys. And yeah, they're Toy Story kids. My sister's kids are more Frozen kids. But I do love me some Toy Story. Those are hard movies to beat. What a remarkable taste those kids have in television. Being an uncle is amazing. I can't say enough about it, and there are no greater joys I have than watching the 4 of them as they grow up and continue to mature and become, they're all here in Edmond. My family's a bunch of homies, a bunch of townies. Homies is not the phrase I was looking for. They are my homies, but you know.
So looking at my notes here, it seems from our team's research that you had a fairly interesting encounter with cancer several years back. Is that accurate?
That is correct. Yes. September 18th of 2008, 3 weeks after I began my internship at Memorial Road, the very first one. I was diagnosed with a mucoepidermoid carcinoma on my right parotid salivary gland, which was a cancerous tumor on the side of my face, placed on my jaw. I didn't smoke, dip. I didn't use cancer-causing products that I was aware of, at least. And so it was sort of an out-of-the-blue thing to find out at the age of 20 that I had cancer, but the doctors sort of assured me that it was a fairly mild form, at least they thought, and so radiation for a few months would hopefully take care of the issue. And so for the next few months, I continued my sophomore year of college while being the intern for Memorial Road and undergoing radiation treatments, I guess every day for, I think it was just like 2 months, maybe 10 weeks. You go into a room and for the radiation treatment, at least they strap you down to a table and put this weird, like, horror film looking mask over you that genuinely pins you down in place to where you don't have the option to move, which is obviously necessary as they're targeting a very specific place with the radiation treatments. After 2 months of this and sort of a reassessment, visiting the specialist and noticing that it hadn't shrunk any, in fact, it seemed to be getting a little bigger, they were kind of, pretty clear that at that point we had to have a surgery to remove the tumor. This would have been about 4 months after the diagnosis for the first surgery, which was a 6-hour procedure that when I woke up, the doctors were glowing and radiant and excited about how it went. They couldn't have felt more positive. Got the tumor out, were able to preserve the nerve, felt like we were in really good shape. And so I was sent home after a few days of recovery. And on January 26th, they called us back in to inform me that unfortunately the cancer had already spread. And had gotten further into my face and head than they'd realized, and that now they needed, it wasn't really an option, they needed to go in and do a full-on facial reconstruction, Dr. Frankenstein sort of operation, which, not gonna lie, it's still kind of cool. But the reality was I was done. So what they told me was that the reconstruction would hopefully get everything and take care of it. What I was told was if this isn't something that works, if it doesn't get it all, there isn't anything else that can be done. And so as a 20-year-old, I was sort of faced with the dilemma of do I continue going and have them hack off half of my face um, with the potential that this thing's gonna get me anyway. I'd rather have quality of life than quantity. And so for about 2 months, I existed just in that space of actively having cancer, having doctors insisting that I needed facial reconstruction, and that time was of the essence. There were conversations that had to happen for everybody's sake that were really not ideal. Really, they were heavy. Moved in with my brother, hung out, watched TV. I dropped out from school, cut all my course load, and took a hiatus from the internship. Oh, by the way, yeah, I was still trying to be Memorial Road's youth intern during this, and so
ultimately, what ended up changing? I mean, you kind of said it yourself, you were done. But obviously you ended up going through with it. So how did A get to B?
Phil had asked me if I would be interested in just taking one day and getting up early and going out with him to Lott, to visit the Wichita Mountains and just spend some time in nature. He had a path in mind and a place that he had gone before, and so he knew exactly where it was that he was taking me, at least to a degree. And so we went there and hiked up, and 45-minute hike up, and got to the top of this setup that we were at in Lawton. And Phil handed me a book with a few marked passages in it, a Bible, and an iPod with a playlist that he'd made for me. And so what he wanted us to do was just each go our separate ways for a little while and spend a couple hours in solitude, and just pray and listen, and to try and just, connect with our Creator. Sitting atop that mountain, looking out, listening to the playlist he'd made me. I was able to listen to the music and just be there and look. As the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people. Surround us, Lord. It sort of opened the door with the thinking, because the song that really spiritually connected in a way that I hadn't anticipated was one I'd heard 1,000 times. It was How Great Is Our God. Fear and darkness and evil. And darkness tries to hide and trembles at his voice. And the sound of God's voice is a funny thing. We'd like to think we understand what that means fully. God's voice is beyond comprehension and measurement, because in that moment, sitting atop the mountain, listening to those praise and worship songs, I was overwhelmed with a palpable comfort of serenity and peace of mind and trust. And it felt as if there were a couple of arms wrapping around and hugging me, and I could very clearly hear a sentence being repeated in my mind. Corey, I've got you. We're gonna get through this. But you gotta trust me. I couldn't explain why. At that point, I knew what I had to do. There was no more waiting. When I got home that day, I informed my family, go ahead, call the doctors, book the surgery. Let's get it going. March 19th, 2009, I think. Maybe March 18th. I went in and had an 18-hour facial reconstruction surgery in which all of the muscle tissue and nerves were removed from this side of my face. A single nerve was grafted in from my shoulder, clavicle area. And then I have a 13-inch incision on my left leg, where they cut from right above my knee all the way up to my hip, to remove muscle and tissue that could be put back in my face. So really, I've got some shoulder and leg going on up here, but after a couple of years, it was able to actually give me some movement back. The end result was a cancer-free life. One that, knock on wood, has remained that way. To see who he orchestrated through those times, the best doctors and surgeons that could have possibly been around for those sorts of things happened to be available and were the ones on my case. Our creator was in full mode of orchestration. It didn't feel great, and it wasn't easy, and it created some discomfort for everybody. And we're all better off for it. I praise God daily for him knowing beyond my own short-sighted understanding what I need and when I need it and how I need it. And to be here at New Hope in a place where I can continue to try and use my experiences and where I've been and what he's done for me to pour into others, to help redirect lives. And quite frankly, for lack of a better term, I've defined ministry for a long time as sort of seeing a lot of people's most difficult seasons of life and signing up to say, hey, I'm going to walk through this with you for better or for worse, and be a resource in any way I can. Man, I've got a million things I could talk about where God's worked palpably in my life, but that's one that for some reason people like hearing about. I don't know. Maury, I think you're the one that brought that up.
Well, if you really think about it, am I?
Okay. Well, that's fair. I actually understand what you mean.
Well, man, thank you. Appreciate it, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
I'd like to think you're wrong about that.
We'll see.
Time will tell. All right, Maury. Well, thanks for doing my job this week. And get out of my house,
problem.
please.
Rude.
Now.
What'll I do?
See you, buddy. See you, buddy.